Revolution Radio proudly presents, live from the heart of the Blue Ridge, Roanoke, Virginia. It's the Just Bernard Show with host Bernard Alvarez. Join Bernard as he shares topics that reveal the real matrix and empower your human experience, including world liberty, the esoteric, suppressed technologies, spiritual ascension, and human consciousness. Humanity has awakened, and our time has come to realize our full potential. And now, live from the Star City, your host, Bernard Alvarez.
Is the path of the spiritual activist. The spiritual activist, to me, is a blending of spirituality and activism. I have a meme that's been passed around now for several years that is one of my quotes, and actually people keep remaking it, and I thank you for that. That activism without spirituality is just an angry mob. And we have to think about that. And the reason why I came up with that meme, it was several years back. I was watching the Bilderberg protests. You know how every year everybody shows up in front of wherever the Bilderberg meetings are. And I noticed this big difference. I saw Luke Rakowski was there, who's one of my favorite activists and journalists of We Are Change, as well as Alex Jones was there. Now, Luke is there. He's doing his thing. He's, videotaping people, interviewing people, trying to get in there and all that stuff. On the other hand, we have Alex Jones, who's screaming at the top of his lungs with a megaphone, calling them dirtbags, scumbags, losers, screw you, just literally berating them in such an ugly, ugly way. And I said, you know what? This can't be the alternative. Like, this is the alternative. So we're going to protest against something using the same ugly energy. That's not creating change. That's just, stopping something from happening so you can be a horrible person. And that really got me thinking about this concept of spiritual activism. And by all means, spiritual activism has been around for decades, if not longer. Geez, probably since the beginning of time, but the term itself has been thrown around now for a couple decades. And it got me thinking that, maybe that's more of what I am, what a little bit more of what I align with. I align more with raising the vibration, not just, being aware of the corruption, being aware of the injustices, fighting for human rights, not fighting against, global elites. I am fighting for people, not against corporatism, if that makes sense. And there's that saying from Mother Teresa: when you have a pro-peace rally, I will be there. Responding to why she won't go to anti-war rallies. She wants to go to a pro-peace rally. So they got me thinking. And we still see it everywhere, and it doesn't matter if it's liberal or conservative, whether it be Democrat or Republican, whether it be the march against Monsanto, whatever it is, there still seems to be an element of that angry mob mentality. It's like, we don't like you, we just want to destroy you. We see it in the media right now with the oh, geez. I mean, we just had the gay marriage issue. Now the silly Confederate flag issue, and it's just like, here. And trust me, first of all, I think it's a media distraction what's happening with this flag issue, but the left, and I'm not left or right, so I will point finger and say the left just wants to eradicate this thing from the planet. And I'm like, it's a piece of cloth. I'm like, really? We're gonna just like go crazy and just be angry and let's. I posted something recently about let's not become bigots against bigotry. And that's what has happened on the left. They've become these bigots against bigotry, that you do not deserve to be on the planet, and anything that has a symbol doesn't deserve to be on the planet. And it was very funny because, what was it, last week or the week before, when this all started. Today's July 21st, in case anyone's listening to an archive of this recording. It was the beginning of July, and I'm watching something, a foreign television show that was actually filmed in Morocco. Okay, so they're in Morocco, and this guy has a rebel flag on his truck. And I'm like, I wonder if it means the same thing to them. Do they know what it means, or is it just the Dukes of Hazzard? Maybe they're fans of the Dukes of Hazzard. I don't know, but it just made me laugh because it was like, oh, don't let the left wing crazy people see this. They're gonna like want to boycott this show that was filmed in Morocco, and it's being spoken in Ursi or whatever. It just goes to show you, and again, it goes back to this idea of being a spiritual activist. Are we angry? Are we being angry activists? Are we being an angry mob? Or do we want, out of love and out of compassion and out of inspiration, want to empower humanity? We want to empower life. Do we want to elevate humanity out of something, and free humanity from the muck and the corruption and the inequality and all of this? Or are we just angry because someone said something that we don't like? Someone wore something we don't like. Someone carried a flag we don't like. Someone is doing something in their bedroom we don't like. Someone is doing something in the privacy of their doctor's office we don't like. Where's the spirituality in that? And I'm not talking about religious belief. I'm talking about spirituality, not man-made religion. A spiritual connection to all of humanity, a spiritual connection to our higher selves and the higher self, and for the highest good of all of us, all of us on the planet and all life on the planet. So with that being said, I went searching, and I was like, well, let me see what's out there on spiritual activism. And I'm happy to say that there's this organization who, geez, I mean, back in the day when I first started, I don't know if they posted my things or I posted their thing, probably a little bit of both. Humanity Healing. I think we both started off on Ning back in the mid 2000s. It's very interesting. Another big community that was around there, the Ning days, which is where the Global Illumination Council was, and they're still around, and they have this wonderful, um, some basic suggestions for spiritual activists, and this talk is inspired from that. So let's start off with the first thing about spiritual activism that lets us know we are on the path of spiritual activism. We're not on the path of an angry mob activist. We're on the path of spiritual activism. And that is that all of our actions are based on compassion. When we are, fighting for a cause, we are motivated. Us spiritual activists are motivated out of compassion for the all, for everyone, and that the idea is our motivating emotion is positive. It's not angry. Yes, of course, as an activist, there is that moment of outrage. There is that moment of, I can't believe they did this. How dare they not let, gays get married, or how dare they not, allow black people to get married, or whatever, whatever the issue is. Like, we are outraged at first, but then comes that moment of, well, geez, we have compassion for all the people that are involved. We have the compassion of that I am taking action for justice for these people that are being oppressed. My compassion, my mindset, my motivating emotion is that of love, compassion, and to elevate others out of a particular injustice that they're being dealt, whether it be by a government, by a religion, by a corporation, by a neighborhood association, whatever it is. It is that motivating factor of compassion that we feel for those that are being oppressed. So Coming from a place of compassion makes it very different than that whole outrage, reactive, angry mob, how dare you mentality. So there's that difference. There's a difference between a spiritual activist and a angry mob activist, which I think I'm going to start using that word now. Angry mob activist. The second thing that is very common in spiritual activism and when one is walking on the path of spiritual activism is that compassion flows from the understanding of the connection between all living beings. It's very similar to what I just mentioned on a greater scale. We've embraced and we've come to understand and we have come to learn to see that our differences are superficial and that our similarities manifest sympathy, which gives way to compassion. We begin to look at the world as, and I say this all the time, we are one human family. There is no they, there is no us and them. We are one human family, and our actions are motivated from the idea of for the good of all, for the highest good of everyone, not for, well, we're right and you're wrong. There's a big difference in this mentality. And again, at this point, it's fair to say that, one of the common underlying things between a spiritual activist and an angry mob activist is that we are looking at the big picture. We value life. We value the environment. We value all life, whether it be flora, fauna, animals, water, and people, of course. So it is seeing how the relationship can benefit the good of all on the planet. Coming from that place of we are one human family, all life forms, all life form. We are one family of life, might even be a better way to say it. So let me quote Thomas Merton here. The whole idea of compassion is based on a keen awareness of the interdependence of all these living beings, which are all a part of one another and all involved in one another. What we do affects the all, and what the all does affects us. As above, so below, as within, so without. The next one is, and again, something that I speak about all the time, this compassion that we have. We can't become uh, doormats. Compassion must be applied with wisdom. I see this happening. I see it within my community. I see it within my friendships where people want to do everything. And we cannot possibly, as an individual, be involved with everything. We have to be very careful in picking and choosing what our causes are and what we align with from the heart. We must learn to act, to proact, not to react. As someone early on, as an activist, I was a reactor. If you look at my articles from 10 years ago, or you look at my Facebook posts from 10 years ago, you'll see me like, oh my God, that's outrageous. Oh my goodness, chemtrails, this, that, GMOs, and trying to cover all the bases, trying to, you know, awaken humanity at the same time trying to save humanity from the evil empire, so to speak. So I've learned that for me, my passion, and this is just for me, that my passion lies in the evolution of human consciousness. That's my cause. That's the cause that I align with the most. I've kind of dropped out from Occupy, and I've dropped out from the chemtrail, geoengineering movement, and the GMO movement. Yes, of course, they're all very important, but my alignment is on the evolution of human consciousness, and actually the war on consciousness that is going on, whether it be through the media or through schooling or through religions or whatnot. But that happens to be my cause. So we have to be aware that we can't fix everything at once. Our compassion must be balanced with wisdom, Let us learn to be proactive. Let us learn not to react and to be very careful on the causes that we choose and know that it comes from our heart. And it's something, it's almost like being in love. A true activist is in love with their cause, because if you were not working for this cause, like myself, if I was not a part of, I don't want to say awakening humanity, because humanity can awaken spontaneously, but if I wasn't proactive in the evolution of human consciousness, I would be very sad. It's like being in love. I am in love with the evolution of human consciousness, and that can go for anything. Whether you're a human rights activist, whether you're an LGBT activist, whether you're a pro labeling GMO activist, this is something that it's in you. It's in your bones. You don't need to be a part of every movement. You don't need to be a part of every cause. You can't do it. You're just going to burn yourself out, and you're going to be a reactive mess, an emotionally reactive mess, being outraged by every single thing that you see, hear, read, and participate in. So be careful. The next point of being on the path of spiritual activism is the ability to apply synergy and teamwork to accomplish your goals. For those of you that don't know the definition of synergy, synergy is a process where two or more actions combine to produce an effect greater than the sum of its individual parts, like ripples in a pond. On a spiritual level, the spiritual actions that we do combine and they build on each other. They begin to magnify, they begin to expand into an effect that's greater than what we can do individually. A great example is, a great example is just sharing something of love and of wisdom on Facebook. Let's say you have this post that, it's very empowering. People are, getting sick and tired of all these memes and whatnot, but sometimes it's at the right time. Someone sees it, it helps their day, it makes their day. They saw it at the time that they needed to see it. It speaks to them. They align with them. It was synchronistic. And then they post it, and then boom, somebody else sees it at the moment that they needed to see it. And of course, it's just a very simple example. But when we're talking about synergy and allowing it to amplify our work, it is like synchronicity. It is like aligning with a certain movement, a certain energy that you're feeling, and letting it grow and grow and grow and grow. Um, and so I feel that with that being said, the next part is to allow yourself to work with a team, allow yourself to collaborate. I have found so many people that in the activist world, and even in the spiritual activist world, if that's what you want to call it, quote unquote, where they cut themselves off, that they just want to do it themselves, or they just want to do it their way, or whatnot, and it doesn't work like that. I think a great example of how I work with collaboration and teamwork to accomplish the goals. And my goal is to empower and evolve human consciousness. My goal is to collaborate with other leaders, other speakers, other authors, people who specialize in areas that I am not aware of. A great example. For the last 2 weeks, we had a series on crystals, and maybe you're not into crystals. I wasn't. And I know a little bit about them, but I really don't know that much about them. But who knew? People are very interested in learning about crystal energy, crystal healing. There's a lot of information that this woman, the Crystal Crone, was on for the last 2 weeks and shared that. So, again, just an example of teamwork, of collaborating. Share share knowledge, collaborate with people, use teamwork to accomplish your goals. Even if it's a local activist event that you want to have a certain rally, get together with organizations, organizations that share in your passion to create change when dealing on that specific issue. Don't be afraid of cooperation, teamwork, and collaboration. The next part about spiritual activism that I want to talk about, and I spoke of this just briefly at the very beginning, but spiritual activism at its core is the pursuit of service for the good of all, not for the advancement or benefit of individuals or selected communities. And again, working for the highest good. Spiritual activism is holistic, it's universal, it's for everyone, it's to elevate everyone. The issues involved are to elevate everyone. I think the closest thing that you could say in reference to it being self-serving is that it is self-serving to our highest self. We are serving our higher self. Yes, are we self-serving? Yes, serving my higher self. My highest self, that's a whole nother show, and there's plenty of them out there that I've done. But connecting, aligning with our higher self, serving our higher self, that's great. But the whole idea on this particular 3D paradigm level is that spiritual activism is for the good of all. And what I mean by the good of all, again, not selected communities. It's not just good for the liberals. It's not just good for the conservatives. It's not just good for the gays or the straights or the blacks or the rednecks or the this or the that. There is no division. There is an all involved. So when we are focusing and living the life of having our foot on the path of the spiritual activist, we are serving for the good of all. We are not being divisive. We are working as uniters. And it's very funny. I had this discussion with a friend of mine recently who is an activist, and they brought up that fact. They said, "You seem to be quite the uniter. I don't do what you do. I get angry. I like to, I don't like it, but I get mad, and it's us against them, and it comes out, and I don't mean to sound that way." I'm like, well, if it makes you angry, and you stay angry, you shouldn't be doing it, and that's the reality of it, because when we are working for our higher selves, when we are working for the good of humanity, it doesn't make us feel bad to work on these issues. It gets us excited. It makes us smile like, wow, it feels so good to be doing this work to, oh, I don't know, end the Fed. There's a great example for the good of all. Getting rid of the central banking system, coming from an altruistic place to serve humanity's greater good. It's not Republican, it's not Democrat, it's not conservative, it's not right, it's not left. It's for the greater good of all. And being so happy at the idea that humanity would be free, using the example of Federal Reserves and central banking systems, that humanity would be free from the slavery of international monetary systems. So, yeah, it is exciting. I get excited when I think of it, don't you? Seeing humanity being freed from economic slavery, it's for everybody. It's not just for one side or the other side, it's for all people. So, if you are being motivated by anger, if you're being motivated by control, if you're motivated by sticking it to the man, so to speak, or sticking it to the Democrats, or sticking it to the Republicans, or the Libertarians, or the Greens, or whoever it is, that's not. It's not working for the highest good of all, and apart from activism, to live a spiritual life, we want to align with love. We want to align with happiness. We want to move toward that which makes us happy. We want to be drawn toward that happy path, drawn toward being happy, feeling joy, feeling empowered. So if you're being pushed into a situation or an issue that it's making you angry, you might want to step back a bit and say, is this the way that I want to, this is the way I want to live my life in general? In general, do I want to just always be angry? Do I just always want to be fighting against something? You know, it's nice to literally fight for something when you change your mindset. And changing your mindset is not easy. And I'm hoping we'll have time to talk about that. We're running out of time in this particular segment, and before I go into the second half, I just want to remind everybody that you can find a majority of the work I've been doing over the past decade, if not longer in some cases, at bernardalvarez.com. My new series, Activate, is there, which is on hiatus, but we'll be back in September as well. My archives are there, my consciousness talks are there. If you want to speak to me on a one on one level, I do offer that as well. I do spiritual mentoring and coaching. If you need to have a one on one time, that's absolutely fine. I'm open to do that. Uh,
And now, back to your host, Bernard Alvarez.
Welcome back to the Just Bernard Show here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Today is my consciousness talk, the path of the spiritual activist, and we're about to start the second half of today's talk. With that being said, let's jump right in and let's talk about the idea of having integrity, honesty, and dignity in the conduct of our actions as activists. That seems you can always see the organization or the people or the activist champion out there, the leader, the luminary, whatever you want to call it, who has the integrity. You can also see the ones that don't have the integrity. We seem to the best way to approach having integrity as an activist is to embrace mindfulness in the way that we apply our activities, being aware of how our actions are being perceived by others. This is a great example of that. Is there are many important issues of the day that are getting attention. And sadly, a lot of the mainstream media will call upon like the worst example to talk about that particular issue. There are radio hosts out there. There are website owners, Facebook pages, and whatnot that just seem to come off just a little left or right of center, for lack of a better term, that really don't have the integrity and are not necessarily they're singing to the choir, I guess is the word I'm looking for, the phrase I'm looking for. And I used to do that. And I find as I started growing on the path of spiritual activism, I came to realize that, words like sheeple, that's gonna offend a lot of people. You're not going to pique people's interest if you're calling them sheeple. You're not going to pique people's interest in your cause if you're showing pictures of maimed bodies and dead babies and calling people names and all of these things. I saw something. Here's a great example of what does not have integrity in my eyes. I saw something today, and it was about veganism, and it made a very good point. It was an article sharing about how um, milk cows and milk farmers, that when a male cow is born, they kill the male cow. And that is a disgrace. It really, if anything, they should sell it, or they don't need to kill it, for goodness sake, just because it's not going to produce milk in my eyes. And I thought, this is something that I feel for, something that I have compassion for, that I would like to see change. But immediately the article went into saying that if you drink milk, you're a murderer, you're a piece of crap, you piece of garbage, meat eating, milk drinking, worthless. I'm like, okay, so now I don't want to work with you anymore. You know, so le- when we are trying to rally the troops, and what I mean by that, when we're trying to bring attention to a specific issue, it's important that we embrace integrity. It's important that we have dignity. We come off dignified. We come off as someone who knows what they're talking about instead of someone who is just angrily ranting. Again, going back to the whole Bilderberg scenario that I was speaking of earlier. Um, the saying of you attract more bees with honey could definitely be applied here. But not only that, we must have dignity in the conduct of our actions. And this goes, and I know people talk about this a lot, is when there is an activist a march or something like that, to not get into violence, to not get into destroying property, not turning it into a riot. When we are, and it's true, and of course the media plays on it immediately. When the black bloc, the angry anarchists that like to break windows and everything and distract the police or whatnot, immediately it makes everybody else say, "Oh, well, I don't want to be around those people. Oh, these kids are nuts. I don't want to work on that issue." So it's important that we are aware of how we are being perceived by others, especially when the media has its eye on us. Machiavelli's "the ends justify the means" has no place in spiritual activism. Our methods must be noble. Our results must be noble. We have to practice spiritual transparency, allowing all that negative energy that we have to just go through us. Just let it out. Don't embrace the anger. Don't embrace the flame of revenge or violence or anything like that. It's not gonna help the cause. It just takes away from the purity and the love and the compassion that is involved in what we're doing, and the passion that is involved in what we are aligning ourselves with. So let's remember, what's that saying? Integrity is doing the right thing even when no one is watching. That's something that it must be applied here in this path of spiritual activism. The next part of being on the spiritual path, one of the tenets of being on the spiritual path is not to defame our detractors or those who doubt us. Very, very important, especially in today's world of social media, especially if you're someone who gets interviewed by a newscaster or something like that. It's important that we realize that when we are engaging in a confrontational reaction, it's going to lead to a defensive reaction. And we must remember that no matter whether it's your Facebook page, whether it's your March Against Monsanto page, whether it's your anonymous, freeing humanity page, that we approach others with openness and compassion in our heart. Sometimes, especially when you're talking about Facebook or any social media for that matter, I'm just going to lump it all together into social media, is there can be language barriers. People may not be communicating correctly, especially when you're talking about an international issue. My page is seen in, Jesus, 70 countries. And sometimes people are going to copy and paste something that they got off Google Translate, and it comes out completely wrong. I get offended, and I'm like, but I catch myself and I say, were you trying to say this? you know and if they are being confrontational, and yes, there are trolls out there, and yes, there are people that are going to doubt you and try to detract from the work that you're doing. I have a very simple method called the SOB method, and that's for those of you that are on social media, Twitter, Facebook. SOB stands for scroll on by. Scroll on by. Just leave it alone. Don't engage. Don't get trapped into that confrontation. Don't do a defensive reaction. And if you have it within you, if you can align with that openness and compassion, talk to them from your heart. Try to build on the commonalities between you instead of focusing on your differences. Be, as much as possible, detach yourself from the results of your actions. Try to just be there and engage them in a very loving way. And again, as far as detaching yourself from the results of your action, that is a very important thing in all spirituality. It's a very good foundation to live by, especially when we are working with such passionate issues in the realm of activism, where we want it to be a certain way. Well, maybe Congress or whatever, your parliament or whatever, doesn't pass the whole bill, but they pass half the bill. So you've kind of made some forward step, even though you didn't get the whole thing. It wasn't exactly the desired result you were getting, but at least you got something done. So and to not take it personally when that happens. So always aspire to be the peacemaker. Don't defame your detractors. Don't get into confrontations. It's not worth it. It's just going to take away from the work that you're doing and the integrity of the work that you're doing. A great quote by Gandhi is, honest differences are often a healthy sign of progress. And I get that all the time. Yeah, I lose it sometimes on my page, and I'll be like, I can't believe this person said that, or I can't believe people are accusing me of this or that. And always everyone says, well, if you're pissing them off, you must be doing something right. So you're making some progress in that world in that way. But yeah, just take a breath. You don't need to be confrontational. It's not worth it. It's not worth losing your integrity, and it's not worth losing any kind of progress that you've already made on that particular issue. And moving on, let's talk about raising another person up raises you up as well. Going back to the idea of in service to humanity instead of in service to yourself. Again, this may not seem like a practical way to live your life or a practical way to be a spiritual activist, but the reality of it is that helping another becomes a form of self-love as well as an expression of outward love. This becomes eventually it becomes this upwardly spiral cycle of increasing awareness, connection, compassion, involvement, capacity, and then back to increasing the awareness. We want to create a vortex or a spiraling energy form that is raising everybody up, raising those around us. When we help those around us, we are helping ourselves. There is more than enough to go around. Always remember that. If one particular entity wants to work with you and they get all the credit, that's fine. Something else will come along where you're going to get the credit, and that's fine. But by helping others grow and rise up, we eventually will be helping ourselves to grow and to rise up. Don't ever be afraid of lending a helping hand to another organization, to another activist, um, and whatnot, because this is the path. This is the path of compassion and mindfulness. The next tenet is learn to listen to your heart and not your mind. On the path of the spiritual activist, we are aware that our mind may only see the problem. We are aware that our mind and our ego will become angry. We are aware that our mind and our ego might become reactive. And it's important to learn the difference between what your mind is seeing and how it's perceiving it to how your heart feels about it. And this can be applied in all aspects of your life. A very very good example. Recently, I was thinking about moving to South Florida. I talked about it last week, but I wasn't really clear, and I was like, it's because things were going on in my life, or I thought this might be the best thing. But that was the thing. I knew I was thinking, and I said, no, give it a couple days, let your heart find the solution. And of course, the heart always does find the solution. Your brain and your mind can see the problem, but it will always be your heart that will find the solution. It's important that we learn to act with faith and to cultivate a loving perception when facing collective problems, especially when you're dealing with uh, an activist organization or whatnot. There's nothing worse than infighting within a particular organization. And then the next thing you know, all the progress that has been created is lost. It's tossed because, either the organization splits apart or they break off into, schisms, and that that part of that issue and that part of that issue, and the wholeness is gone. We don't want to divide. We don't want to divide. We want to unite. Remember, spiritual activism is about uniting, not dividing. So be fair, you know, help each other with compassion, and always, act from the heart. Have faith. Martin Luther King says faith is taking the first step, even when you don't see the whole staircase. And you can say that again, Mr. King. Thank you for that. Boy, we're running out of time already. So let me move on to the next one, which is search out viable and sustainable solutions. Be solution based, seeking out solutions that maintain or restore the dignity of individual humans and their communities, solutions that become self sustaining. This can be applied in many, many ways, whether it be economically, whether it be, food wise. Give a man a fish, he eats for a day. Teach a man to fish, he eats for a lifetime. This can be applied in all aspects of our communities. This can be applied in all aspects of society. So, as we are complaining about what's wrong with the system, as we are being outraged by the dysfunction of, quote unquote, the system and the corruption and the global elite and et cetera, it is important that we also begin to find solutions that are going to be self sustaining, that they're not just going to be implemented and then lost a year down the line or 2 years down the line. Let's create something that's going to work for generations and to keep people elevated and out of injustice, and that all people will gain and I don't want to say get something, but will be elevated because of the work that's being done. And then last but not least, and this is a really, really important one, and I know as a spiritual activist, I get very frustrated by this. We need to understand and we need to embrace the fact that spiritual activism is about process. Okay, it is about doing and to continue doing and continue doing and continue doing. The process by which we arrive at the goal is as important as reaching the goal itself. If we live the change we want to see in the world, we're not going to lose. We've already won. Unfortunately, many of us get very frustrated. We want to see the goal tomorrow. We want to see, you know, a simple American issue, a third party, fourth party elections. We want to get rid of the corporate duopoly of Democrats and Republicans. Let's say, as an example, we want to see it in this campaign. We want to see it now, and then another election cycle comes along, and we get angry, we get frustrated, we don't want to participate. Things of that matter. Thinking that we're going to solve the world's problems next year, or thinking we're going to solve the world's problems next month, and not being happy when we're not seeing it. We need to put ourselves in the solution. We need to live the solution. We need to be the ones who set examples of what the world is going to be like in the quote unquote new paradigm. I say this all of the time. We are the new paradigm. We must live, walk, talk, eat, sleep the new paradigm in order for it to take root on this planet. We can't talk about it. We can't say that, oh, well, if this happens, then everything will be okay. No, it's not just one thing. This is about process. Spiritual activism is about process, the process in which we live, the process in which we are headed toward that final goal. Don't get frustrated. It's not going to happen next week. It's not going to happen next month. Maybe by some surprise it'll happen next year. Wouldn't that be great? But the reality of it is, we're talking generational. I may not see the world that I'm working for by the time I die, and I'm okay with that. I may not see, a populist government. I may not see GMOs eradicated. I may not see the end of geoengineering. I may not see any of these things in my lifetime, but does that mean I'm not going to live working toward that? Of course not. I'm going to continue doing it. I'm going to continue living as if I have already achieved and accomplished that goal. And I suggest that to everyone out there. Remember that in the key of working with energy, spiritually speaking, is that we see it, it creates a ripple, and and then we release it. If we keep motivating and elevating the energy of the new paradigm as if we've already achieved it, if we keep releasing the intention of a world of peace, of a world of evolved consciousness, of a world where injustice is no longer an issue, if we keep focusing on that, we are going to keep creating it. So instead of focusing on that which you hate, instead of giving our attention and intention on that which we hate, let's stop creating that which we hate. Remember what they say, worrying is praying for bad things to happen. So if we keep focusing on all the negative, we're going to keep creating the negative. If we keep acting negatively, we're going to keep generating negativity. Spiritual activism is a process. Be the process, be the solution. Know that we have already achieved everything. It is here. We are the solution. You are the solution. And with that, I want to thank you all for listening to today's Consciousness Talk. Next week, I have a wonderful speaker. Patricia Ayan is coming back, and she is going to be doing a talk on the Egyptian netters. And for those of you that don't know what the netters are, those are the gods and goddesses of ancient Egypt and the Kemetic tradition. She'll be joining me live next week. She's actually touring the United States doing a talk similar to this. We love